think it's clear that we are not prepared for this level of burning across Europe. I mean, we are quite well prepared for milder fire years, but this is really exceptional, and it's a matter of resources. Our firefighters here are completely stretched, and of course those across Western Europe and Southern Europe are also stretched.
Now, with the frequency of wildfires across England and across Europe as well, questions are being asked about how best to stop its spread. Earlier I spoke to Simon Hunter, the Times reporter in Madrid, where a national emergency has been issued due to wildfires near the capital city.
I mean, this is the worst fire that we've seen in Madrid on record. The reason for declaring a national emergency is because the prevention of fires and the tackling of fires is a competency that falls to the regions. So the reason that the national emergency has been declared is because that means that the national government can now step in. Its powers now supersede those of the regions to be able to better coordinate resources to try and tackle these wildfires.
That was Simon Hunter, Times reporter in Madrid. Let's go now to Professor Stefan Doerr, who's the director of the Centre for Wildfire Research from Swansea University. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening.
When you look at what's happening in Southern Europe and in the UK as well, I mean, 2025, more land was burned in the UK than in Greece because of wildfires. And this year, there's a lot of big fires here as well as in Southern Europe. Are we just not prepared for this? What more can we do, given that this is the kind of reality that's upon us every year now?
I think it's clear that we are not prepared for this level of burning across Europe. I mean, we are quite well prepared for milder fire years, but this is really exceptional, and it's a matter of resources. Our firefighters here are completely stretched, and of course those across Western Europe and Southern Europe are also stretched.
So how much could actually be mitigated with the right gear, more firefighting planes and so on? And how much is it about changing human behaviour to prevent the fires breaking out in the first place?
Well, yeah, these are two very important questions. In terms of gear, of course, you can always buy more airplanes, you can buy more fire engines, and so on. But we should remember basically that fighting large fires is extremely difficult. You can't really stop them easily just by throwing water at them. You actually have to remove the vegetation that's in the path of the fire. And for very large fires, this is very challenging. It's a big resource issue. The other part of it is actually the ignitions. Now, we will always have some ignition somewhere, whether that is by a barbecue, whether that is by arson, a faulty power line, somebody harvesting their field. Normally, that wouldn't lead to a fire. It's just we had this incredible heat wave, the third heat wave now. The fuel or the vegetation that essentially turns into fuel is so dry that what would normally not cause a fire does cause a fire now. So we really have to work both on avoiding those ignitions, but also, of course, avoiding the fires to spread further, and that really comes down to land management. So that means we need more fire breaks, and also means that we need to reduce the amount of vegetation on the landscape. Many firefighters say a fire that we fight today will actually lead to a bigger fire in the future, because we just have this continuous accumulation of fuel, especially in some areas of southern France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, where we have this land abandonment, and this leads to more and more fuel on the landscape.
Right, so clearing the land more aggressively, that's clearly one, measure that can be taken. What about more sort of tech-savvy stuff? For example, I was interested to read about Greece experimenting with heat-seeking satellites to zap the fires more immediately when they break out. Is there any sign that's effective?
Well, that's really not that effective in Europe, because the detection of a fire in Europe isn't that much of a problem. That may be a problem in remote areas of Canada and Siberia. It's more a problem actually tackling that fire when it actually goes to certain sites. So yes, some advances in actually finding a fire early, but at the moment we basically have a 10-minute overpass of the most recent satellite, or 10-minute basically check on imagery. So this does help, but that doesn't necessarily bring the resources on the ground. So I would say in Europe, this is less helpful. It would be helpful, of course, in more remote regions.
So it's much more about land management.
Absolutely. It's more about land management, it's more about preparedness. But we also need to recognize that we have to live with fire. We have to live with more fire, or certainly more fire danger in the future. There's no doubt about this.
How can you live with that when you look at those conflagrations, though? It's just, it's like hell.
How do we live with heat waves, for example? We basically need to prepare, and one way of preparing this is have really good evacuation plans, have better land management. It's not just clearing the land; it's planting different species, for example. many pine forests, for example, in southern Europe, they're very flammable. We're still planting some eucalypts in Europe, which, of course, under these drought conditions are very flammable. And what would be much better is a more open landscape with deciduous trees that are more native in some of these areas.
When just standing back and looking at climate change more generally, there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, about geoengineering, something like marine cloud brightening, for one example, which, as I understand it, is spraying tiny sea salt drops into low ocean clouds to make them thicker and more reflective. Is all of this stuff pie in the sky? Is it too risky? You're tampering with the climate in a way that could have unforeseen consequences. Or do we need to get to the point of considering some of these more, braver interventions?
Well, I mean, that's a very complex area, and we certainly tinker with something that we don't understand enough. Now, when it comes to wildfire, there's really nothing directly in that area that would help, because even if we can actually mitigate the climate to a minor point regionally, we will still get these extreme heat waves. We will still get these really dry conditions. And again, with a landscape that has more vegetation in many places now and more sources of ignition, because we have more humans around as well. The density of population in Europe is certainly increasing in many areas. And that means also holidaymakers in many areas are increasing. And that simply means that we have a higher probability of fire.
Stefan Doerr, thank you very much for joining us. Professor Stefan Doerr, Director of the Centre for Wildfire Research from Swansea University there.